I thought I knew everything about power and success until I met her at my best friend's wedding. She was teaching his daughter piano in the corner, completely unimpressed by my billion-dollar empire. What happened next changed everything I believed about love, worth, and what truly matters in life. Before we dive into this incredible story, hit that like button if you believe in unexpected love stories, and subscribe for more real-life tales that will change how you see the world. My name is Damian Cross, and 6 months ago, I thought I had life completely figured out. At 34, I was worth $2.3 billion, CEO of Cross Industries, and had everything money could buy. My penthouse overlooked the city I practically own. My garage held cars worth more than most people's houses, and my calendar was booked solid with meetings that moved millions with a single signature. When Brad Wellington's wedding invitation arrived on my mahogany desk, I barely glanced at it before handing it to my assistant. "Schedule it," I said, the same way I'd schedule any other business obligation. Because that's what everything was to me. An obligation, a networking opportunity, or a transaction. Brad had been my college roommate, sure, but even our friendship had become another item to maintain in my perfectly organized life. I remember looking at myself in the mirror that Saturday morning, adjusting my custom Italian suit, thinking this would be just another event where people would gravitate toward me, hoping for something. A business deal, an investment, maybe just the chance to say they knew Damian Cross personally. I'd perfected the art of being charming, yet distant, generous, yet calculating. Every conversation was a chess move, every smile a strategic advantage. The drive to the countryside venue was peaceful in my Bentley, my driver navigating through rolling hills while I reviewed quarterly reports on my tablet. Even on weekends, even at weddings, business never stopped. That was the price of success, I told myself, and it was a price I was more than willing to pay. But as we pulled up to the elegant stone manor where Brad was getting married, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, a weird emptiness. Here I was, arriving at my oldest friend's wedding, and I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt genuinely happy for someone else's joy. When was the last time I'd experienced joy myself beyond the thrill of closing another deal? I pushed that uncomfortable thought away as I stepped out of the car, immediately greeted by the familiar attention that followed me everywhere. Heads turned, conversations paused, and I slipped back into the role I knew best, the successful billionaire who had everything under control. Little did I know that in just a few hours, everything I believed about control, success, and what truly mattered was about to crumble completely. The wedding ceremony was beautiful, I'll give Brad that, but my mind was already wandering to the business calls I needed to make Monday morning. During the reception, I worked the room like I always did, shaking hands, making small talk, dropping just enough hints about my latest ventures to keep people interested. It was all so predictable, so routine. That's when I noticed her. Brad's 8-year-old daughter Lily was sitting alone in a corner, looking completely overwhelmed by all the noise and chaos around her. The poor kid seemed lost in her own father's wedding celebration. Now, normally I would have just made a mental note to send an expensive gift later and moved on. But something about the way she sat there, so small and forgotten, bothered me more than it should have. I was about to approach her when I saw someone else beat me to it. A woman knelt down beside Lily, and I stopped dead in my tracks. She was absolutely stunning. This beautiful black woman with the most genuine smile I'd ever seen. But it wasn't her beauty that caught my attention. It was the way she moved, the way she immediately focused all her energy on comforting this little girl. "Hey there, Lily," I heard her say as I got closer. "I know it's pretty loud in here, isn't it?" Her voice was warm, patient, like she had all the time in the world for this one moment. I realized she must be Lily's piano teacher that Brad had mentioned. Naya something. Rivers, I think. I decided this was my moment. I walked over with my most charming smile, the one that usually opened doors and closed deals. "Excuse me," I said. "I'm Damian Cross, Brad's friend." "Lily, sweetheart, would you like me to get you something special? Maybe some ice cream or a new toy?" Naya looked up at me with these incredible dark eyes, and I waited for the usual recognition, the slight change in posture that happened when people realized who I was talking to. Instead, she just smiled politely and turned back to Lily. "What do you think might help you feel better, honey?" she asked the little girl, completely ignoring my offer. I stood there, actually stunned. Did she not hear me? Did she not realize I was offering to buy this kid whatever she wanted? I tried again. "I'm sorry, I don't think we've been properly introduced. I'm Damian Cross." I said my name slower this time, like that would help. Naya glanced up briefly. "Nice to meet you, Damian. I'm Naya." Then she turned right back to Lily, suggesting they go find a quieter spot where Lily could play piano to calm her nerves. And just like that, she stood up and walked away with the little girl, leaving me standing there like an idiot. For the first time in years, someone had treated me like I was completely ordinary. And honestly, I didn't know whether to be insulted or intrigued. I couldn't get Naya out of my head. For 3 days after the wedding, I found myself distracted in board meetings, thinking about the way she dismissed me so effortlessly. It was driving me crazy. So I did what I always did when I wanted to understand something. I had my people research her. Naya Rivers, 29 years old, music teacher at Jefferson Community Center in one of the city's roughest neighborhoods. She'd been raising her 15-year-old brother Keon alone since their grandmother passed 2 years ago. Multiple jobs, no car, took 3 buses to get to Brad's house for Lily's piano lessons. The woman was barely scraping by, and yet she turned down my attention like it meant nothing. I had to see her world for myself. So that Thursday, I drove my Porsche to Jefferson Community Center, a building that had definitely seen better days. The parking lot was cracked, the windows were barred, and there was graffiti on the walls. This was so far from my usual environment that I felt like I'd landed on another planet. Inside, I could hear piano music, not perfect, but full of joy. I followed the sound and found Naya teaching a group of kids on instruments that were barely holding together. Keys were missing from the piano, violin strings were frayed, and the drum kit looked like it belonged in a museum. But these kids were playing like they had a full orchestra. I watched Naya work, and it was like seeing magic happen. She moved between students, encouraging the shy ones, gently correcting mistakes, celebrating every small victory. When a little boy got frustrated because his trumpet wasn't working right, she knelt down and showed him how to work around the broken valve. "Music isn't about having perfect instrument," she told him. "It's about having a perfect heart." That's when she noticed me standing in the doorway. After class ended and the kids had gone home, she walked over with that same polite smile. "Can I help you with something?" I pulled out my checkbook, my usual solution to everything. "I'd like to make a donation to your program. How about $50,000? Her expression didn't change. She didn't gasp, didn't get excited, didn't even blink. "That's very generous, but we can't accept that." "Can't accept it? Why not?" "Because I don't know you, and money like that always comes with strings attached. These kids don't need a savior, Mr. Cross. They need consistency, commitment, and respect." She handed me a business card for the community center. "If you're serious about helping, there are proper channels." Good evening. And for the second time, Naya Rivers walked away from me, leaving me standing there with my mouth open and my ego in pieces. But this time, instead of being insulted, I was fascinated. Who was this woman who couldn't be bought? I should have walked away. Every logical part of my brain told me to forget about Naya Rivers and get back to my perfectly controlled life. But I couldn't. Instead, I found myself showing up at the community center every week, not with grand gestures or checkbooks, but just showing up, helping move equipment, listening to the kids practice, slowly earning Naya's trust through actions instead of dollars. For the first time in my adult life, someone was seeing me for who I actually was, not what I could provide. Naya and I started having real conversations about music, about the kids, about dreams that had nothing to do with profit margins. I told her things I'd never shared with anyone, like how lonely it felt to never know if people liked me or my bank account. "You know what your problem is, Damien?" she said one evening as we locked up the center together. "You've spent so long using money to solve everything that you forgot how to just be human." That hit harder than any business criticism ever had. But before I could respond, my phone rang. It was my chief financial officer with news that made my blood run cold. Our biggest deal of the year had fallen through. A $50 million contract, gone. The board was calling emergency meetings, the media was circling like vultures, and suddenly everyone was questioning my leadership. For the first time in my career, throwing money at a problem wasn't going to fix it. I spent 3 sleepless nights trying to salvage the deal, missing time with Naya and the kids. The stress was eating me alive, and the worst part was feeling like I had no one to talk to about it, except her. When I finally broke down and told Naya what was happening, she didn't offer business advice or tell me it would be fine. She just listened, really listened, and then said something that changed everything. Maybe this is happening because you need to remember what actually matters. That's when the paparazzi found us. Pictures of me and Naya talking outside the community center hit the tabloids the next morning. Billionaire's secret romance with inner-city teacher screamed the headlines. My phone exploded with calls from board members, investors, and socialites, all asking the same question. What was I doing with that woman? The pressure was suffocating. My lawyer advised me to distance myself from Naya for the good of the company. My publicist suggested a statement denying any romantic involvement. Even Brad called, worried about how this might affect his own business relationships. Standing in my empty penthouse that night, looking at those horrible headlines, I realized this was my moment of truth. I could choose the easy path, protect my image, save my reputation, keep my perfectly controlled world intact. Or I could choose something real for the first time in my life, even if it cost me everything I thought I wanted. The problem was, I was terrified of making the wrong choice. I made the coward's choice. I stepped back, told myself it was temporary, just until the business crisis passed. I stopped showing up at the community center, stopped calling Naya, convinced myself I was protecting her from the media circus. But Naya saw right through it. When I finally worked up the courage to text her, her response was simple. I understand. Take care of yourself, Damien. Those 6 words broke something inside me. She wasn't angry, wasn't demanding explanations. She was just gracefully letting me go, the same way she'd gracefully rejected my money from the beginning. She had too much dignity to fight for someone who wouldn't fight for her. 3 months later, my company had recovered. The board was happy, the media had moved on to other stories, and my reputation was intact. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt emptier than ever. I was back to my old life, expensive dinners with people who bored me, charity galas where I wrote checks instead of making connections, meetings that made millions but meant nothing. That's when I saw the video. Lily's end-of-year piano recital posted on Brad's social media. There was Naya, beaming with pride as Lily played a beautiful piece. But what destroyed me was seeing all the community center kids performing too, on those same broken instruments, with that same pure joy. I realized I hadn't just walked away from Naya. I'd walked away from the first place I'd ever felt like I belonged. I spent the next 4 months learning piano. Not because I was naturally talented, I wasn't, but because I needed to prove to myself and to her that I could commit to something without expecting immediate returns. I practiced until my fingers bled, hired the best teachers, but more importantly, I practiced with my heart. The next recital was my chance. I walked into that community center for the first time in 7 months, carrying a simple keyboard I'd bought. Not an expensive one, just something that worked. Naya looked shocked to see me, but before she could say anything, I asked if I could play a duet with Lily. We played Chopsticks, the most basic song in the world. But I poured everything I had into those simple notes. Every missed opportunity, every moment I'd chosen money over meaning, every regret I carried. When we finished, the room erupted in applause, but all I could see was Naya's face, tears streaming down her cheeks. After everyone left, we sat alone in that beat-up music room. "Why did you come back?" she asked. "Because you taught me the difference between having everything and having enough," I told her. "And you're enough. You're more than enough. You're everything I never knew I was looking for." That was 8 months ago. Today I still run my company, but I also run a foundation that funds music programs in underserved communities. Naya and I are partners in every sense of the word, in business, in life, in dreams we're building together. I finally learned what real wealth looks like. It looks like love. If this story hit you the way it hit me while living it, then you know what real transformation feels like. It's messy, it's terrifying, and it's the most beautiful thing that can happen to a human being. Damien thought he had everything figured out until he met someone who couldn't be impressed by his billions, only by his heart. The truth is, we all have moments where we choose between what's easy and what's real, between protecting our image and protecting what matters, between buying our way through life and actually living it. Naya didn't just change my life, she saved it from becoming completely meaningless. So here's what I want you to do. If this story made you think about what really matters in your own life, mash that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more stories that prove love always wins over fear and courage always beats comfort. And tell me in the comments, what's the most valuable thing in your life that money can't buy? I'd love to hear your story too.